skills that I have, because I have none. But I do want to talk about 1 Corinthians 6, 19 through 20. We're told by Paul, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price." And what was that price? Jesus Christ, the life of Jesus. "Therefore, honor God with your bodies." The idea being that if we keep ourselves healthy, both mentally and physically, we can be better representatives of God, and we can better do God's work. The first thing that one needs to do in order to remain healthy, both mentally and physically, is to make a choice to do so. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is choice and how to keep ourselves healthy. And this Creation Life series was recommended to me by Samuel Negria, and it's an acronym they've made up by Advent Health. C for choice is where we're starting, then rest, environment, activity, trust in God, interpersonal relationships, outlook, and nutrition. And this is indeed a series that Pastor Samuel intends for us to go back and forth a little bit with. I think he's going to talk about the interpersonal relationships. I hope so, because that's not my area. And also, he's going to talk about the trust in God, I do believe. So if for some reason you don't care for the series, well, we're starting today. You let Pastor Samuel know. If you don't want me to come back, I will completely understand. It will not hurt my feelings. I understand that this is not my area. I'm used to talking in front of people, but as I was telling Daniel earlier, when I get into the pulpit, I'm terrified. And I truly am. I stand before you terrified, because the responsibility of standing in this pulpit and talking to people is so much more than talking in front of a bunch of students. So the creation series that we are going to talk about is very similar to the SDA health principles, and I give a URL there, and I can send this PowerPoint series to you if you want to email me, amber@siu.edu. I go by Amber, my students call me Amber. So amber@siu.edu, and I can send this to you. But it's similar to the New Start acronym that was put out by the SDA Health Principles Group, where there's nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, trust in God. Very similar also to the creation series that we're going to be talking about. And this is also very similar to the Power of 8 principles that was discovered by Dan Buettner in the Blue Zones. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but this gentleman did a series of studies looking into areas where there were people who lived beyond the normal lifespan. They're in these 5 areas shown here: Okinawa, Japan, and Greece, and Sardinia, and Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica, and look there in Loma Linda, California. This is referring mainly to a group of Adventists there. So the Adventist health principles, they've got a lot of people living a long time. But in these areas were found to be an inordinate number of people who lived into their 90s and even into the 100s. And not only did they live to these long ages, they did so in a healthy manner. These people were still up, moving, doing things, and thinking just as clearly as they may not have been when they were in their 20s, but just as clearly as they did in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. These people were living long.
We've got one right back here. He's 105 there. 106 or 5? 105.
So everyone, this gentleman right here is an example of living the creation life. Thank you so much for being an example to the rest of us. We really appreciate it. I'm so happy to see you here today and see what God can do for you when you follow His principles. Power of 8 is what they found in the Blue Zone, also very similar to what they found with the New Start and what they're putting forward with the Creation series. But what they found in common in all of these 5 areas was that they belonged to some faith-based community, the right tribe, that is, people who supported their efforts in living a good long life. Loved ones first, except the Adventists who put God first, but their family second. These people had a purpose. They downshifted is what they call it, but they took rest. They moved naturally, that is, they did exercise without pushing it to an extreme, had a plant-based diet, and something that was common to all but had a specific name in Okinawa was hara hachibu, the 80% rule. That is, when you sit to eat, you eat till you're 80% full and then stop. Because a few minutes later, as the food moves all into the stomach, you'll find that you're becoming more and more full. So eat till you're 80% full and give it a time and you will feel full. All right, so the Creation Life series, we're going to start with choice. Choice is the power to control the direction of your life. Consistently making wise decisions is key to creating the life you want. So choice means that we have free will. Genesis 1:1, we're told in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and throughout Genesis we find that he created everything on the earth. On the sixth day, God created man and woman, and he gave them dominion over the earth. And he gave them free will. That made us much more interesting for God to commune with. We can talk to us, we can make decisions, we can ask, and we can learn from God. God wanted companions. He didn't want slaves. He didn't want mindless animals. He wanted creatures who had free will. Then he gave us a choice. And one rule, do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Told us not to do this. We could physically do so. Adam and Eve could do so if they chose. God gave them a choice. But what did they do with their free will? They broke the only rule that God gave them. They ate of the fruit that they were forbidden to eat. Eve first and then Adam. They both chose to disobey God. They were tempted by the serpent, who is basically Satan in disguise, and they fell from grace. And as a consequence, the humans were banished from the garden and from the face of God. They could no longer commune with God one-on-one. But God did not give up on us.
Amen.
He put enmity between the serpent, Satan, and the woman. We're told in Genesis 3:15, this is often called the proto-evangelium, the first mention of Jesus. God said to Satan, I will put enmity, disgruntlement, hate, between your offspring and her offspring. And it says specifically, he shall bruise your head. The most special offspring, who is this? Jesus. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. And indeed, Christ came, he was born, and he lived and grew and became a grown man, and he gave it all for us. After living a completely sinless life, the only human to ever do so, he was crucified. Satan inspired the group of people to scream, crucify him, crucify him. Pilate even washed his hands in front of the crowd, meaning that I'm guiltless of the death of this sinless man. The crowd screamed, crucify him, and they did. But Christ had the ultimate victory. Because of his sinless life, God was able to bring him back, to resurrect him, bring him forth from the grave, and in doing so, he provides for us the opportunity also to live with him and have eternal life in heaven. John 10:10 tells us about Jesus, one of the Gospels, and in that particular verse of that chapter, he tells us, I have come that you may live life to the fullest. So even though we turned away from God, he sent a Savior, and he tells us, I expect you to live life to the fullest. He has graciously outlined this through the Bible, and we're going to talk about this through the creation series. He gives us choice, the ability to direct our free will, and we must exercise wisdom when making choices, because these choices determine the course of our lives. From where can that wisdom come? From God. We can ask, we can pray, please, Lord, help me make the better choices. Stephen Covey was an educator, an author, a business person, and speaker who wrote numerous books about how to be effective. And one of the things he wrote, a quote of his, anything less than a conscious commitment to the important is an unconscious commitment to the unimportant. Meaning that if you make this commitment to the important, if you don't make it, then you're going to commit to something obvious by default. For example, a person who says, I'm not going to follow God, I'm not going to follow Satan. But what does Satan want us to do? He wants us to follow him. He wants us to turn our backs on God. So if a person who chooses not to follow God and his precepts, by default, they're choosing to follow Satan. So that's one of the things that Stephen Covey was referring to. So we're blessed with the power of choice, the power to become who we want to be. I want to be an example for Christ. Oftentimes I'm not, I have to admit, and I've lived at times a horrible example. But we can make a choice now to become who we want to be. And as we've seen by the studies done by Dan Buettner, living this life that God has outlined for us, the creation life, can add years to your life. I'm going to veer a little bit again from the Advent Health Group's particular slides and talk about the Adventist mortality study, as it's called. It was a major study of Adventists done in 1958 at the Loma Linda University. They studied 22,940 California-based Adventists who were formally surveyed about their health. It was an intensive study. 5 years later, they did an intensive follow-up and an even more intensive, less intensive but informal follow-up 25 years later. During the first 5 years, while this group was studying the Adventist, a very similar study was being conducted by the American Cancer Society in California. Researchers got together then and compared the people in the Loma Linda study with the people in the study done by the Cancer Society, and they found that all the causes of death among the two populations, the Adventist men had a 34% lower death rate, and the Adventist women had a 12% lower death rate. The follow-up study compared them further and found that on average, Adventist men lived 7.3 years longer and women 4.4 years longer than the California counterparts. So choice is the first step toward an improved living. Choice is the first step toward living the life God wants us to lead. It can be as simple as starting with a smile. Do you know that? Not with just a fake smile, but smiling with your whole face and your eyes. You can make yourself feel better just by smiling. By smiling, using those muscles, you can actually affect physiological mechanisms that are turned on during happiness. If you just smile, you can make yourself feel happier. And if you think good, positive thoughts, you can make yourself even happier. Choice improves happiness. Having control and the ability to choose can improve your life and give you a longer, happier life. I'm going to talk again about a study done in the 70s by a group from the Graduate Center of Yale University. What they did was they studied a group of people in a nursing home. All right? They had two different groups. They separated them out. One group was told, you get to make some choices. You can pick your own healthy meal. You can pick what kind of exercise you want to do. The other group was told, we are going to pick the most nutritious foods for you, and we have the best plan of exercise for you. Both groups were given a plant. This group was told, you can take care of your plant. If you need any help, ask us. We'll help you take care of your plant. The other group was also given a plant. They were told, we're going to take care of this plant for you. They then did follow-up studies of the people themselves, asking them questions and asking questions of the caregivers, the nurses and the doctors of these people. And what they found is that the group who had choice displayed greater alertness, they participated more in activities, and had an improved general sense of well-being. Folks, we're designed to have choice. God gave us choice. He designed us to have choice. Blessings of having choice increases individual sense of personal control and feelings of intrinsic motivation, is associated with numerous physical and psychological benefits. So you can ask yourself, how satisfied are you with your life? Are there any specific areas where you're not as happy as you could be, where you think you might need to make some changes? You can start by choosing to do so and asking God for the help to make the right choices, to know how to move in the right direction. Where can I get help? Ask for advice. You start by asking your doctor for help if you need help losing weight, if you need help with better exercise. They'll have programs for you. Or you can ask this gentleman back here lots of questions about how to have a healthier life. Which direction are your choices taking you? Choose to balance the good and leave out the bad things, the Advent Help Group tells us. In Proverbs 24:5, we're told, a wise man is strong, and a man of knowledge makes strength greater. So when you take care of your physical strength and your body, your physical body, it improves your mental alertness. When you keep your mind healthy and you use it also, it helps keep you physically healthier. They work hand in hand. So one thing you want to do is increase your knowledge. What the Advent Health people suggest is you read good, healthy books. Books about making choice, books about Jesus, helping you make choices. You can listen to audio books, watch informative, healthy programs. We have a lot of programming through 3ABN, correct? Use the internet wisely. There's a lot of garbage, a lot of trash, a lot of misinformation out there. Be very careful about the websites you choose to follow. Look at where they come from, who is supporting them. I suggest ones from the medical schools if you're looking for advice on health. Yale, Harvard, Johns Hopkins. I give a lecture on nutrition, and those 3 websites have some beautiful updated information about taking care of yourselves. Exercise your intellectual muscles as well as your physical muscles. We're told in Isaiah, come, let us reason together. Use your reasoning skills. Your skills of looking at a problem, looking at a situation, and thinking it through. Looking for consequences. If I do this, what are the consequences? If I do that, what are the consequences? You reason through. You use logic. It can improve our reasoning abilities. The Advent Health Group says you can take a class on logic, philosophy, debate, classic reasoning. There are some free programs online. If you take one through the university, it may cost you some money. Sometimes they have some classes that are free through community outreach. Meet regularly with a group of friends and engage in stimulating and constructive debate, discussions, or conversations. Folks, your Sabbath school this morning was amazing. Everyone was talking. He was doing a wonderful job of leading and listening and inviting, and people were choosing to make comments. You had a discussion going. It was fantastic. That's a wonderful example of using and sharpening your reasoning skills. Reasoning involves, the Advent people tell us, take what we know about a situation, apply the principles we live by, Christian principles, such as the rules we must keep, laws we are bound by, good old common sense, to help us make the best choices. There was a study done by Martin Seligman at Penn State. He did a study that resulted in an idea called learned helplessness. He took a large group of dogs and they grouped them into 3 different groups. Group 1 were placed in a box that the floor was wired to deliver mild shocks. Now, they were not tormenting these animals. It was more like, I don't like this. This is, it's like a fly, get buzzing around your head. It's like, I'm tired, I'm annoyed. So it was more annoying. It wasn't painful, but it was enough over time. They left them there. The dog was really getting tired of it. They left him for a period of time. The first group was not exposed to these shocks. The dogs in group 2 were placed in the same box for the same amount of time, and they were given the shocks, but they could avoid the shocks by pressing on a panel with their nose. They figured that out. So every time they get shocked, they could, push it and stop it. Group 3, however, were placed in the same box for the same period of time and were given the same shocks. But they were given no way to avoid them. So group 1 was sitting in this box, no shocks, probably getting pretty bored. Group 2, they were getting shocked, it was annoying, and they would stop it. Group 3, they were stopped. And so they conditioned these animals in this manner. Now, once they had completed this first experimental manipulation, these very same dogs, groups 1, 2, and 3, were placed one at a time in a box that had 2 chambers. The first chamber had the shock, the second one had no shock, and the dogs were allowed to jump over. The dogs from group 1 and group 2 were quick to figure out that they only needed to jump over this barrier to avoid the shocks. But most of the dogs from group 3 didn't even attempt to avoid them. They had learned that they couldn't get away from the shocks. They had decided, when these shocks start, I can't get away from them. I'm not even going to try. Why? They had learned that that locus of control was outside of themselves. It was called learned helplessness. So the dogs, repeatedly exposed to the uncontrollable shock, gave up even trying to escape. And this behavior persisted even when they were moved to a place where they could escape the shock. They learned this helplessness. This also is the case with people. We can experience learned helplessness. If, for example, there's some stimulus, we always get this response, no change, we stop trying. For example, and they've done studies with children. And if you think about, you've got a child in one group with one teacher, they learn that they can't do algebra. So they think they're having a tough time with algebra with this teacher. We all know some teachers are better than others. Some people can teach certain things better than they can teach other things. An algebra teacher teaches algebra, but not all are the same. So this child, let's say with a teacher who did not teach in such a way that this child could learn well, was confused. This child decided, I cannot learn algebra. They moved him to a different area with a different group and a different teacher. Maybe this was the best algebra teacher on the planet. This child didn't even try because he had learned that he couldn't do algebra. He had learned helplessness. So that can occur with all of us. So when you make a choice and you decide to go, stick with it. Try new things. Try different ways of doing that. What we're showing here is the frontal lobe of the brain. The frontal lobe is where the areas of judgment, decision making, it is this part of the brain where these areas occur. Will, choice, judgment, reasoning, learning social norms, and long-term planning. Right here. I forgot I had them all outlined. All of which help make us healthy with the ability to make life-giving choices. So choose to enhance your frontal lobe. This is the Advent group saying you can enhance your brain health, and they have ways of doing so. Good choices to enhance frontal lobe activity include thinking positively, right? If you're in a situation where, if that one child had learned, I can't do algebra, you need to think. Maybe somebody had encouraged you, oh, come on, just try it. Think you can do this. Decide you can do this. When you make a choice, decide, I can do this. I am going to ask for God's help, and I can do this with Jesus supporting me. Amen. Physical activity actually improves the brain's functions. You get better circulation, you get more stimulation of neural circuits. Mental activity itself, read more often, do puzzles. My dad does crossword puzzles. He's 83, sharp as a tack, does crossword puzzles, and some people do those Sudoku puzzles. And then some people like to do games, like to play games like chess, checkers. All of these things enhance your mental activity. Massage, now I like those, like that thought. What it actually does is it can enhance circulation by stimulating blood flow through the muscles. Sunshine. Did you realize that? Sunshine sharpens the mind and reduces the stress hormone cortisol. The less cortisol we have, the better off we are. Good carbohydrates. This is carbohydrates that are like fiber and some starches as much as you need. The good carbohydrates, not sugars, single sugars, little single molecules like sucrose that we eat, table sugar. We don't need a lot of that. But the good carbohydrates can enhance our frontal lobe activity. Music. Generally, they're talking about soft, soothing music, maybe some that's rousing, that gets your blood pumping. If any of you lacks wisdom, we're told by James, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Ask for wisdom to make choices. Ask for guidance. Common effects of a compromised frontal lobe. The Advent Health Group tells us impairment of making moral choices. We don't understand moral principles as well, potentially. We don't understand social cues. We can start to lose our care for families, start to lose our ability to understand and to empathize with them, to sympathize. Lack of foresight, consequences. We may not understand the consequences of our actions as well as we should. Become less and less capable of abstract reasoning, taking things that are not something you can touch and putting it together in such a way that you're understanding. Depression can be something that can come about because of a compromised frontal lobe. Common effects of a compromised frontal lobe: loss of empathy, the ability to feel what other people are feeling, to understand what may be going on in their mind, their heart. Lack of restraint, a person may begin to boast, become a little more hostile and aggressive. Diminished ability for mathematical understanding, increased chance of adopting risky behaviors. It's one of the things that comes about when you don't truly understand consequences. Young men in their late teens and early 20s are known for taking risks and risky behaviors. One of the things that scientists has found is that the part of the brain that deals with consequences and understands consequences, it takes longer to develop in human beings. Not that it doesn't develop, but to develop completely so that they're thinking, oh, that's not a good choice because, something bad could happen. The Advent group also gives us tips for making choices. Stay focused on what the real choice is. Don't be distracted. Things that can distract you: sleep, chaos all around you, that is demands from other people around you, other people at work or at home. And they give us yet another acronym, HALT. Remember the HALT, they say. So do not make big decisions when you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. I have discovered that when I go to the grocery store when I'm hungry, I spend too much money and I buy too much stuff that I really don't need. That's when I end up taking stuff to school. So my students love it when I go to the grocery store hungry, because when I get home and look at this and think, oh no, I take it. And all the graduate students descend upon the free table. Choosing wisely, they say, isn't always easy, so choose to make one wise choice at a time. So you need to make some changes. You've got so many, maybe you got to prioritize them, come up with a way of doing it, and take baby steps, right? If you can't do it all at once, take baby steps that'll allow you to get where you need to be. And if you make a mistake, it's okay, all right? Because you can change that new day, the next day, to make a new decision. Reflect on the changes you want to make. We're told in Isaiah, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. They also make some recommendations for steps to change. Choose, first of all, choice, creation. First move is to choose. Pray for wisdom. Take an inventory of yourself, what changes you want to make. And after you've done these three things, they recommend that you prioritize them. Follow through. Decide how you're going to do this and follow through. And reinforce. You can make a mistake. Today, it's okay. Tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to wake up and I'm not going to do that again, right? And every now and then you can reward yourself. I used to be rather heavy. Decided I was going to lose some weight. I did so, but every now and then, every so many pounds, I got an ice cream. I like some ice cream. A reward every now and then. It's all right. They give us yet another acronym for setting goals. This is SMART. First of all, your goals, when you set them, be specific. Make sure that these goals are something measurable. Pounds, for example. I was measuring some pounds. It might be some other thing that it may not have numbers associated with it, but measures of I'm smoking fewer cigarettes than I was, or I'm drinking fewer cans of beer a day, whatever you need to change, it can be something measurable. Make sure your goals are attainable. You don't want to overburden yourself with something you can't attain and become discouraged and say, oh, I can't do this. Number one, think positive, I can do this, and who's going to help you? And you can ask for God. He said that he would. So he'll help us. And he can help us set attainable goals. Be realistic, be rewarded. There's that ice cream I got. Time specific. I'm going to lose 2 pounds a week, 1.5 pounds a week. That can vary depending upon your size and what your doctor suggests for you. So I'm going to do so many a week, and when I lose so many more, get my ice cream. All right, we all veer off the course because of life's unexpected events. Here comes Thanksgiving around the corner. Yeah, there goes my diet. Got a reward. Yeah, and I did not lose that 2 pounds or that 1.5 pounds that week, but I veered off course, but I can get back on course, right? Make course corrections to get back on track. Choose to keep going. Remember, you are one choice away from living a better life. We're told in Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Raphael read this for us. It was a wonderful reading. In all your ways, submit to God, and he will make your paths straight. All right, I want to thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate it. And I believe we have the closing hymn. Live out thy life within me.
316.